Hi, friends. Y'all doing okay? Well, first of all, thank you to local media because we cannot get word out to our residents to stay safe without you. So sincerely, thank you for being here. We know that these storms are also difficult for you and your teams as you navigate all across DFW. This is a significant event, which is why today we're represented by so many wonderful people, not just by the City of Fort Worth, but Sana will also introduce to you several other very important partners that keep our region safe. And we're in close communication, of course, with the Texas Department of Emergency Management and all of our partners across the state of Texas. The most important message I can give our Fort Worth residents today, of course, is we are prepared. That this team of people is working very closely together alongside our other municipalities across DFW to make sure you stay safe. The message you'll hear today is really clear, is once this storm hits this weekend, if you can stay home, please stay home and off the roads. That's the most important thing for our emergency personnel that are out there as first responders. And continue to stay up to date information that the City of Fort Worth puts out, other municipalities across our region. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to our communications director and we'll get into the press conference. Thank you again. Good afternoon. Today we'll be talking about the winter storm that's expected to hit North Texas between 10 p.m. and midnight Friday night. This has the potential to become a 3 to 4 day event. Because of the amount of sleet and snow we are expecting to get, power outages are a serious concern for us. The message we want to send home today is if you have something to do tomorrow, take care of whatever you need to do, and then we need you to go home and we need you to stay home. Every additional car on icy roads increases the likelihood of crashes, and crashes do not just endanger drivers, they damage infrastructure and contribute directly to power outages, especially when ice is involved. Today we have a number of city departments with us to answer specific questions. We have also brought in several of our community partners, including TxDOT, Atmos, Encore, and Trinity Metro. We have provided you with the list of names in the advisory, but everyone will introduce themselves as they come up. I just want to say that this was not a one-day preparation deal. We have been preparing all year. We work together as a city to prepare for events just like this. And as the mayor said, we are ready, and we just need people to stay home and stay safe. I'm now going to introduce our Emergency Management Director, Sunny Saxton, to walk you through kind of what the city is doing to prepare for the event. Sunny?
Thank you, Sana. Thank you, Mayor. We appreciate that. My name again is Sunny Saxton. I'm the Director of Emergency Management and Communications for City of Fort Worth. Before I get started, I just want to thank my colleagues that are here, many of the directors and staff and first responders. We're very appreciative of the help that they've had. As Sana stated, we didn't start just 2 or 3 days ago. We really started months ago, and I would argue that maybe even a year ago, because we're always learning from the past event. I do want to tell you, though, that today we need to prepare for a multi-day winter weather event. It's going to be 3 to 4 days. We're going to be we're going to see possibly sleet, snow, ice, dangerously cold temperatures will approach not just Fort Worth, but the entire region. So our Emergency Operations Center that you're in here today is active. We are coordinating closely with some of the departments that you see here today, but also other regional partners, our utility providers, to prepare for these impacts that we expect. There are things like particularly hazardous road conditions, power outages, and life safety concerns that are related to the prolonged cold exposure that we're expecting. I want to turn our attention to travel and safety. So if you must travel, we're saying that treat this as essential travel only starting tomorrow afternoon and evening. Bridges and elevated roadways will freeze first. Slow down, increase your following distance, and drive below the posted speeds when conditions warrant. If you are involved in a non-injury crash, please move your vehicle off the roadway if it is safe to do so that way we can keep the roads safe for others. Speaking about roadway and transportation preparedness, the city's Transportation and Public Works team have been actively preparing. Streets, bridges, hospital entrances, critical corridors have all been pre-treated with brine. Crews are ready to deploy up to 30 sanding trucks at a time, operating in 12-hour shifts. Our priority routes include bridges, hospitals, access points, major hills, arteriaries, and emergency shelter locations. Our regional partners, including TxDOT, are also operating around the clock on the state roadways, and Trinity Metro is preparing for potential delays, detours, or even service reductions. Residents who rely on these transport services should plan ahead and check for updates before traveling. Thinking about power outages and cold exposures, ice accumulation is one of the greatest threats to the electric service grids, and we are preparing for the possibility of localized outages. Our partners at Encore have crews, equipment, and additional resources staged across the region. They are prepared to respond, but restoration during icy conditions can take time and must be done safely. We strongly encourage residents to prepare now for the potential outages. So how do you do that? Do things like charge your devices, have blankets ready, flashlights, essential supplies. Check on your neighbors. That's what we're good about in Fort Worth. That's what we're good about in Texas, especially your seniors and those who might have medical needs. Supporting our vulnerable populations is very critical in this time. We're protecting our most vulnerable residents as a top priority. For individuals that are experiencing homelessness, emergency overnight shelters will be activated beginning Friday evening. Outreach teams that include police, fire, our nonprofit partners, they're actively sharing cold weather information, shelter information, and transportation options to those that are experiencing homelessness. If you see someone, we're asking for the help from the public, if you see someone who appears to be in distress or is at risk due to the cold, please call 911. We want to get them the help that they deserve. For pets and animals, animal care and controls adjusting our operations due to the weather. Residents with concerns about outdoor pets also should contact the city for assistance as soon as possible. For city services and operations, some city services and facilities will be closed or operating with limited staffing as the conditions worsen, that includes our community centers, our animal shelters, drop-off stations for refuse and environmental collection services. All of those types of decisions are being made with employee safety as number one, public safety as number one. We have to think about that first. We'll clearly communicate those as we make those decisions. So how should the public stay informed? This is a rapidly changing situation. As you heard, just in the last hour or so, it's been updated to extreme cold warnings, and we also have extreme winter storm warnings. So we want the community to stay informed. We ask our residents to monitor the official City of Fort Worth communication channels. We also ask them to follow updates from our partners like Trinity Metro, Encore, TxDOT, Atmos, etc. The last thing I might mention about information is try to avoid the rumors and misinformation. Use only trusted official sources. So in closing, I want to be very clear. The storm has the potential to be a long, cold, disruptive event, but preparation, as we have been doing and as our community can do in the next 24 hours, and the cooperation to stay off the roads, all of that makes a real difference. So please stay home if you can, reduce travel, check on your families and neighbors, and those may need help. Give crews the space they need to do their jobs safely. So we're prepared, we're coordinated, and we'll continue to provide updates as conditions change. So our teams are here and they're ready for any questions that you might have for us. Yeah, thank you for that. We have somebody to represent us from Water that's going to talk about that.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Harder. I'm the Water Director. I was also the Water Director back in 2021, so I remember that very well. We have committed to replacing our cast iron pipe system. At the time in 2021, we had about 800 miles of cast iron pipe. We're now sitting at about 710 miles. We have over 40 miles in construction and 150 miles in design. So we are, following through with what we committed to not only council but also the public, that we've identified cast iron as a problem in our system and we're committed to replacing it. One thing I might mention about something that has changed since 2021, you may recall that we did have a lot of power outages at our water plants. And another commitment that we made was that the vulnerability we had with piping systems that were outdoors, we were going to enclose those. So those enclosures are constructed, so we shouldn't have any problems if we do have a small power outage at a plant that would take the system offline, those piping systems freezing up. And then lastly, we also committed to putting in backup power at our facilities. We have one facility that's been completely converted over to diesel backup power, and we actually have 7 generators that are on order right now. They're not going to be here for this event, but they're on order and they're coming in the next couple months. Yeah. So repeat that again. So going back to 2021, the one plant that did not lose power was our Rolling Hills plant, which draws power from high voltage lines. So we think that one's pretty safe. That's the Rolling Hills plant. That's our largest plant. The other improvement that I hadn't mentioned, we've been working with Encore over the last 4 years, and we do have a new substation that's coming off of high voltage at our Eagle Mountain plant.
Hi, this is Carrie Dunn with Encore. Burying lines is not one of the ways that we are emphasizing resiliency. We do that in certain locations, but just based on Texas geography, based on cost, it's not always the most cost efficient, it's not always the most friendly, it's not always the most reliable for these locations. What we have been doing in order to improve the resiliency of our system is that 2020-25 was actually the first year that we finished our full implementation of the system resiliency plan. With that, I think the most notable change that you'll see is that we more than doubled our vegetation management and our tree trimming. So addressing those overhead lines, that's across our system. So we had 8,000 miles of additional lines trimmed across our system. And then we also are continuing the system resiliency plan for the next 2 years. So the system resiliency plan is a really strategic plan we've designed to make our system smarter, stronger, and more resilient for weather events such as this. I'm sorry? It depends on the exact winter weather that we'll see, and winter weather can be especially challenging to see how it will impact our equipment and our infrastructure, because even a slight variation in temperature can decide if we're going to see sleet, if we're going to see snow, if we're going to see ice. Regardless, what we do know is that broadly, ice is the most challenging impact to our infrastructure and to our equipment. So for our customers, I would encourage them, instead of focusing on the type of lines, is to help focus on what they can do to be prepared right now, as the city just talked through, and then also to recognize that our teams are doing everything we can to get people and resources in place to respond to outages wherever they may occur. So we've increased the number of personnel, that's additional line workers, that's additional tree trimming. We've increased the inventory across our system. We've got transformers, poles, equipment across the DFW area here in Fort Worth, and then out into our broader areas as well. This is going to be a very widespread event, so we're looking at this kind of all hands on deck across our service area. We maintain mutual assistance partnerships with crews all across the country. We've been in touch with those partners. Right now, we've been able to increase our crew availability here in Texas with our Texas partners, with our contracting support. With this storm, though, we're also looking at impacts that aren't just limited to Texas. You're looking at impacts across the entire southeast, the eastern seaboard, up north. So we are aware that a lot of our partners are having to prepare in their own service areas and with their own communities. We'll stay in touch with them throughout the event, and if we need additional out-of-state resources and they're able to release them, we'll be coordinating with them on that.
Sure. I'm not sure that I accept your precept beginning that there's not adequate investment in the infrastructure. I can tell you in a briefing I attended this morning with Executive Director Mark Williams, TxDOT currently has 5,000 forces across the state working around the clock. We have additional resources headed to Fort Worth this afternoon to help us amplify efforts here. I believe that it's a familiar and known problem and issue for us, and we rise to the challenge. And I think that some things that we have done operationally over the last years have helped to be able to intensify efforts where they're needed and when they're needed, both from a resource point of view and an employee point of view. So I think we're ready. I would echo the mayor's primary concerns that the number one thing that the public can do for us over the next 3-4 days, actually TxDOT would have 2 requests. The first is please give us space. What you're driving through is our work zone, and we need room to do our jobs and keep everyone safe, our employees included. And the second thing that we would ask of you is remember, over the next 3-4 days, just please, we spend a lot of resources now on a campaign called Drive Like a Texan. This is one of those times that it could really help. And that means being kind and courteous and safe. And so that's what we would be asking of the public. And being a Fort Worth girl myself, I know that Fort Worth will rise to that occasion. I don't know if my colleague Val would like to add anything from a local perspective.
Yes, Val Lopez, TxDOT PIO, Fort Worth District. Within Tarrant County, we have 100 vehicles of all different configurations that will pre-treat and treat the roadway. Within the Fort Worth District, we have 350 employees working around the clock in shifts. That includes everything from drivers to office support staff. And we have something in the range of 500,000 gallons of brine that we're continually making during the night so that we can use it during the day. So we feel that we're well staffed and very well prepared for this particular event. So brine is one tool in our toolbox that we use. We have a variety of materials that are available to our maintenance staff, everything from brine to salt-based deicers, chemical deicers, sand for a little bit of traction. Brine is just one tool in that particular toolbox. And speaking about dilution, precipitation hitting it, that's actually part of the process. We need a little bit of dilution of the brine after it dries on the roadway so that it acts like antifreeze. It lowers the freezing point of that water. So that's actually part of the process.
Absolutely, they're one of the many partners. The North Tarrant Express is one of the many partners that we'll be working with in the coming days. Other organizations like NTTA, the City of Fort Worth, to make sure that all roads are uniform in the commitment to safety and communicating to the public what the expectations are and how the roads can be traversed safely. We're in close communication. Sure.
I've seen the digital speed limits. Will
Yes.
they be an implementation? Should we be aware of this digital speed limit changing in traffic? We're concerned about what happened a few years ago. So I need information.
Sure. So there, as Val mentioned, that we are always getting new tools in the toolbox. That comes from both a technology and a materials point of view. This would be one example of a technology tool in the toolbox that we have worked to have different tools. We thank legislators for their support in that. This will be one of the first, actually the first event in this area where we will have that tool at our disposal. There is a process and procedure in place, and that is one of the decisions that will be coming if we would use it were the roads to stay open and when that would be implemented. Those are, again, decisions that will be made in our emergency operating center in the coming hours.
Thank you for the question. My name is Bethany Warner. I'm assistant to the city manager, and I work with homeless strategies. I'm going to cover the questions on the homeless sheltering parts of that question. So, yes, we do have an emergency overnight overflow sheltering program. It runs from October to March each year, so we've already been running this for a couple of months. But of course, in the coming days, we're going to see likely the sharpest increase in utilization of that from our folks experiencing unsheltered homelessness in our community. So that process is one where we inform and educate folks that they need to first come to our existing shelters in Fort Worth. That's Union Gospel Mission and Presbyterian Night Shelter. You may be familiar with those. And then the city's part is once those existing shelter resources fill, we transport folks to the overflow shelters. The overflow shelter plan is such in that we have multiple locations with many beds we can use, so it escalates to meet the need. So depending on how many folks we intake, we transport them to that many centers and fill those beds. So it's a plan of escalation. So it's done in partnership with the local shelter partners and those great existing shelter resources, and then an overflow escalation when that's needed. And then to the question on how we're communicating with folks, as Sunny mentioned, we've got Hope Fire, Hope Police, Street Outreach. They've been communicating this for months. When it gets cold, here's what you do. We'll take you to an overflow. But we're especially impressing that this week, of course, in advance of the dangerous cold weather. So some extra pushes this week. We're having folks go back out, and the message everyone is sharing is simple. It will be dangerously cold. Please go to shelters. And if they get full, we're going to take you to an overflow location. We've placed electronic signage in the East Lancaster corridor, and we're also utilizing fortuitous timing tonight is the annual point in time count. If you're unfamiliar, that is a federally mandated process where each continuum of care area has to do a count of the homelessness in their community. That's happening tonight in Fort Worth, and so we're having volunteers, hundreds of volunteers, canvass the city to talk to unsheltered folks. We're going to utilize that opportunity to pass out bus passes, to tell them information, and to encourage people come into the shelter. So we're taking advantage of every opportunity we have to help get the word out. And as Sunny mentioned, if you see someone in intense distress, you're concerned about their safety, call 911, and we'll partner with the police to handle that. Now, for questions about maybe where someone who has a home but might want to utilize a warm city facility, I'll ask Dave to come talk a bit about that.
Good afternoon. Dave Lewis, Director of the Park and Recreation Department. For the safety of our residents and our staff, all community centers will be closed Friday at 6 p.m. and will remain closed Saturday and Sunday. However, in the case of a localized emergency, any center could open as a crisis center as needed. And then we also, in the event of a widespread citywide emergency, we have 5 localized or regional hubs where we can really consolidate resources should something happen on a larger scale.
Raymond Hill, Interim Fire Chief. The primary concern during winter weather events is carbon monoxide, so we encourage people not to use grills indoors, gas-operated generators, or propane heaters inside. If you notice the symptoms of carbon monoxide poisoning, such as nausea, vomiting, dizziness, call 911 and we'll send out a unit. As far as reducing the number of fires, it's just paying attention to all of your heat sources. If you have a fireplace, make sure you don't have combustibles close to your fireplace. Again, just limit the use of candles indoors and make sure you're monitoring those and make sure those are away from combustibles as well.
Good afternoon, Cody Wittenberg, Director for Environmental Services. So at this time, we don't currently have any change to our trash services. We're continuing to monitor this situation very carefully over the next few days. But of course, as we get better information available, it will be posted on our website, and we'll make that available to everyone carefully. Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon. Reed Lanham, Chief Operating Officer at Trinity Metro. Right now, we're not planning for any service reductions, but we are monitoring, much like everyone in this room, the situation very closely. As conditions worsen, service reductions are possible, right? We're encouraging our customers to stay alert. They can access our updates through our website, our rider alerts that you can subscribe to, as well as the GoPass app. We're going to be putting out information in real time as quickly as we can. This could get to the point where we have to temporarily suspend service. In that instance, communication is key, and we'll continue to push out that message as widely as we can. But right now, I want to make it clear that we're going to try to run as much service as possible as long as the conditions allow for it.
Okay, great questions. Hopefully John Ray heard that. I'm going to introduce our emergency management coordinator to answer that question.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm John Ray. I'm the emergency management coordinator for the city of Fort Worth. Could you please repeat your question? I'm sorry, I did not catch that. Absolutely. So you use the term all hands on deck. So this is a whole of city approach for us. All departments are involved in this activation. So tomorrow afternoon, we're going to be fully activated here in the Emergency Operations Center, and our focus is going to be public safety. This is a public safety event. We are focused on the continuation of city services, mission critical city services that serves the public, and that's going to be a all hands on deck approach. Absolutely. Yes. So when we activate the EOC, we have representation from across all departments. We have our operations section, our planning section, our logistics section, and our finance and admin section. That's the ICS structure that we have here for the city. Once we're activated, we're coordinating with all of our stakeholders, regional partners, as well as state Department of Emergency Management to make sure that we have all the critical resources we need on hand. We're monitoring the status of all of our critical city services I alluded to earlier. That includes our Public Works Department, our Fire Department, our Police Department, and other key stakeholders for the city. Any indicators that we get as it relates to public safety or any life safety type of events that are ongoing, we're going to have the pulse on that.
So there's a little bit of a sense of panic. You can see it at the stores. People are kind of scared. They're panic shopping.
Sure.
How can you calm down kind of the residents of Fort Worth and DFW? What message you want to tell them to reassure them that you're all doing your best right now?
Well, I may not be able to help the bread rush and the milk rush because I saw that myself yesterday when I went to the grocery store. But our hope in putting this press conference together was to provide that sense of calm and understanding that your city is absolutely prepared, that we've got expertise, and we're really thankful for the partnership you've seen demonstrated here today. This center here will be active throughout the entire winter event, which is incredibly important. If I were a resident in the city of Fort Worth watching your news channel right now, I'd want to know that too, right? Who are the best and brightest that are in charge? And that's these folks that are here represented today. And importantly, that message of stay home, don't go out if you don't have to. You probably have enough milk and bread at this point. And importantly, check on your neighbors. I do think that was an important message throughout this discussion today, that there are plenty of people that are more vulnerable. Maybe they don't have transportation. They're not able to go to the grocery store. Let's just check on each other through the next few days. We can get through this as Texans. And the last thing I'd mention too is if you need a resource, the city of Fort Worth will still be available to you, right? You can call 911 in an emergency. You can contact our non-emergency line. You can obviously, through all of our official channels, please use that information. And in this situation, I mean this lovingly, sometimes it is actually better to stay off Instagram or Facebook unless you're reading official sources, right? And we will do our best to communicate clearly to our communities. And again, I meant that when I opened. Thank you for being here, because I do believe all of our local news outlets are trusted sources, and you need to be provided with updated information. So we'll continue to do that over the next several days. Thank you. What's Stock Show and Rodeo? I'm glad you mentioned that. I was just there for our annual luncheon where we honored our former chairman, our former president, executive director, Brad Barnes, and they are very prepared. This team of people is also working with Fort Worth Stock Show and Rodeo. That is a incredibly important event that is 3 weeks long. They're in the heart of that right now. I would encourage you to visit with them directly, but I can tell you in talking with them, they're making plans for families that are here from out of town for their 4-H and FFA kiddos, keeping them safe. They also have animal safety. That's a core piece of their mission, of course, and making sure the livestock are cared for as well. The show will go on, and importantly, there'll be stock show. There'll be a rodeo, of course, on Saturday night and on Sunday matinee. Sunday matinee, by the way, is actually our first responders rodeo, which, of course, not many first responders will get to come to the rodeo. They'll be out saving lives and keeping people safe across the city of Fort Worth. But I have fully confident Matt Carter and his entire team are prepared for that event throughout the weekend to actually make sure people remain safe, but the Stock Show Rodeo does continue.
Absolutely. Dave Carbajal, good afternoon. Assistant Chief, 4th Police Department. Absolutely. The key to this is going to be communication, right? So we want to put our resources where we can utilize them the best way. So as we communicate in this room and they're saying, here's an overpass we need to watch, here's a place we need to pay more attention to, that's where we're going to send our most valuable resources to and make sure they're there. We'll also have specialized units that do many other things, but the overall goal of any police officer is public safety. So public safety this weekend is keeping those roads safe and getting those calls answered, so that's what we'll be doing. There's definitely some additional officers coming on, but the best thing we can do is utilize what we have in the most efficient way. So that's what we're focusing on first. And then if we need more, we'll definitely bring more in based on the need.